Years to the day since William Tyrrell vanished from the New South Wales mid-north coast, police have hundreds of persons of interest in the case. And now a computer image has been compiled of how the little boy in the Spider-Man suit would most likely look today. Let's go live to our reporter Michelle Tavernitti, who's at police headquarters in Sydney. Good morning, Michelle. Resources are being brought in from around the state.
Good morning, Jane. That's right. Detectives from Strike Force Roseanne, which was set up to investigate the disappearance of William Tyrrell, have been given information on 600 persons of interest. Now, 200 of them haven't been identified, but certainly a massive amount of interest in this and a big update in this investigation. 2 years since the case that gripped the nation, 3-year-old William was playing in the backyard of his grandmother's home at Kendall on the New South Wales mid-north coast when he simply vanished. Now, of course, we know those images of a cheeky little boy wearing a Spider-Man suit, that suit that he was wearing, in fact, when he disappeared. Now, in terms of the police investigation, police at local area commands across the state have been given those details of those persons of interest. Now, it's up to them to help tackle that list and then report back to the homicide squad. And also today, a facial anthropologist has released a computer image of what William, who'd be 5 now, would most likely look like. A reminder, of course, that anybody who has any information is urged to come forward and contact police. Jane?
And a pretty distressing weekend for his family too, I would imagine.
Joining us. I'm joined today by Premier Mike Baird, and we're here to take you through and in fact give you an operational update, but particularly to announce a reward in a matter that has captured the hearts and the minds of the nation. I'm also joined by Detective Chief Inspector Gary Jubilant, who leads the operation, and as you are all aware, today is the 2nd anniversary on the kidnapping of the little fellow William Tyrrell. Can I say by starting that today we've been heartened by the support from government, particularly Premier and the Deputy Premier, and I can announce to you that as of today there will be a $1 million reward for the safe return. In fact, the return of this little boy. It is a unique announcement here in New South Wales. We've never had a $1 million reward ever before. That's 1 million reasons why somebody that's out there that knows what's happened should come forward and talk to us, and do it soon. I'll hand over to the Premier for a few words, and then I'm going to hand you over to Inspector Jubilant. Can I say I'm very, very pleased with the way the investigation is going, in that the work that the police have done has been unending. They continue to invest into this investigation. The level of commitment is second to none. Inspector Jubilant will give you an update so you can find out exactly where we're up to, and then we'll come back and take some questions. I'll hand over to the Premier and then we'll come back to some questions after Inspector Jubilant.
Thanks, Commissioner, and obviously delighted to be here with the Commissioner and Gary and the whole team that are involved in this investigation. 2 years ago today, the tragic disappearance of a young boy, William Tyrrell. Events that tore that family apart, that community, indeed tore the hearts of everyone across this state, indeed nation. What we need to do is everything possible to bring William home, and that's what today is about. As the Commissioner announced, we are providing the largest ever award to bring back William to his family, to his community. Those $1 million, we hope, encourages anyone with any information to come forward, to reunite William with his family. It's an incredibly difficult thing to watch as a parent. Every parent across the nation sits and is absolutely in the sense of deep grief with that family as we think about these terrible, terrible circumstances. I want to pay tribute to Gary and his team. We have the best police, I think, in the world. They're doing everything they possibly can to bring William home, and his team and the investigation underway is doing everything possible to do exactly that. And I want to pay tribute to them and their incredible efforts to bring William home. I also want to finally just thank the public. The public are providing information. They are doing everything they can to support the police. to bring William home, and I want to thank them for it. There is a huge amount of community goodwill in terms of trying to support every single effort of this investigation. And everyone that's come forward, those that have marched in support to the family, and obviously that community, I want to thank them as well. And lastly, to the family, the Tyrell family, our thoughts remain with them. A very difficult day today, but our hope on the back of the reward that is offered, a day that is a key moment in bringing William home.
It was on the 12th of September 2014 that 3-year-old William Tyrell was abducted from his grandparents' home at Kendall. It's unacceptable that 2 years down the track we haven't found out what's happened to William. The purpose of the conference here today is not just to announce the reward, but to outline what we've done in the past 2 years, give you details of the investigation, how we intend to use the reward, and what our future directions will be on this investigation. And it's very important that I dispel the perception, or possible perception, that the announcement of the reward is the situation that we've run out of lines of inquiry. This is a very proactive investigation. We've got numerous lines of inquiry, and we see the reward as another tool that we can use to find out what's happened to William. To give you an understanding of the magnitude of the investigation, it is the state's largest investigation. We've had over 2,800 reports to Crime Stoppers alone from members of the public providing information. We have a further 196 reports directly to the strike force. We've had 1,078 sightings of William Tyrell. All this information has been followed up, and we've collated the information and created investigators' notes on it, which is currently in excess of 11,000 pieces of information we've got. We've collected 628 exhibits. We've identified 690 persons of interest. Now again, I want to make it very clear that the fact that we've got so many persons of interest doesn't mean that we have no idea on what's happened. We've cast the net very wide on this investigation. The level of risk associated with the persons of interest vary. How we target those persons of interest vary. There's been some very public lines of inquiry that have played out in the media and in the public. We're doing that where a lot that the public are not aware of. As I stand here and speak, we're working on covert operations at this particular point in time. To address the numbers of persons of interest, the 690 persons of interest, we've increased the size of the strike force. We're now getting assistance. Roseanne is the name of the strike force run by the homicide. We've now created Roseanne 2, which provides assistance from other squads within State Crime Command. They include the Armed Hold-Up Squad, the Sex Crimes, and also the Fraud Squad. We're also using local area commands to target these persons of interest. How we target them, I'm not going to go into methodology. It's covert, it's overt, all different ways, depending on the level of risk associated with those persons of interest. In regards to the reward, how we intend to use the reward, it is a very generous reward. It's the largest reward in New South Wales history, and I thank the government for supporting this investigation, the Premier and the Police Minister, who have seen the importance to the community that this crime is solved. We see this $1 million as a big tool, and this is how we're going to use it. If you've got information in regards to William's disappearance, and you've got concerns that you could be potentially complicit in the offence by concealing the offence, that offence will be negated the moment you come to police. So that's a big ticket item that you can consider if you have been sitting on this information. The other thing that you might be concerned of if you have this information is about your identity being revealed. I can guarantee personally that we can protect your identity, we can protect your safety. The thing that you might weigh up if you have got the information that you're sitting on, there is now $1 million a reason to come forward. Think about the possibility that, and I've talked about how proactively we're targeting this investigation. I'm confident in saying it's only a matter of time before we find out what's happened to William. And if we come to you, the offer of the reward is off the table. The other thing that you might consider, other people might have information about what's happened to William. They might come forward. The person responsible for abducting William will now have to look at the people they've confided in and think, well, there's a million reasons why they might betray you. So the pressure is on, and we're going to continue on pushing that. I'd also like to talk about the wording of the reward. The majority of rewards are upon the arrest and conviction of the crime. With this one, we've added another part to it. It's about the recovery of William. So the information that you've provided, if we can recover William, you have then a legitimate claim on the reward. But be confident that the reward is not the only strategy that we've got in place. With the sheer numbers and the sheer volume and the effort that we're putting into this investigation, we are confident we will find out, and we acknowledge that it's unacceptable 2 years down the track that we haven't solved this crime, but it doesn't mean that we're giving up. We're in fact rolling our sleeves up and going even harder on it. I'm happy to take questions.
Gary, the wording, recovery, does that lead us to think that perhaps the strike force is hopeful that William Tyrrell is still alive?
We keep all options open, and until we've got evidence to the contrary, we'll treat this investigation as if he is potentially alive. So the recovery of William, and I look at it from both ways, if he's alive or if we find William's remains, as unpalatable as that sounds, we've said to the family we're going to do everything possible to find out what's happened to William. And with this reward, that is just another tool, another stick that we've got to wave.
Gary, in all of those hundreds of pieces of information that you've gathered over the past 2 years, has there been any that's given you that hope that it will lead to William?
There's been numerous lines of inquiry, some of which have played out in public, some which have been kept covert, that has caused us to be extremely excited about the possibility of recovering William. So each day that we come to work, we're getting information, more and more information, and each time we follow it up, that small piece of information could be the thing that breaks this case. Could I just stress with the information, we're not interested, and it has got such a profile, and the public have been so cooperative in the way that they've provided information. But look, don't waste our time with clairvoyance or dreams. We want to focus on tangible evidence, and let's use common sense with the evidence that's provided. If a child's getting around in a McDonald's car park in a Spider-Man suit now 2 years after William's disappeared, we're not particularly interested. But what we would be interested in, if anyone's got concerns about the circumstances in which a child has come into a family's family, or the way people react, and this is probably a sign for people to look at, the way people react when we talk about William Tyrrell. It's a very public case. Some people might overreact, some people might just overreact in the terms of they don't want to speak about it. So anything that you've got suspicion, provide it to us and we will follow it up.
Have you spoken to the family today?
I have spoken to the family today, and the family are very hopeful that with the generosity of the reward and the significance of the reward, that potentially can flush people out.
Gary, has the family been ruled out categorically in this?
Yes, I've said that earlier in the investigation, that the family, and look, quite often there's rumour and speculation on high-profile cases, and it's a little bit vindictive at this point in time where blame is attributed to the family. I can say, yes, we have ruled the family out. I've personally interviewed the family, and I'm saying they've had nothing to do with it.
There was a number of scenarios possible in the days and months after William disappeared. Have you been able to rule out any scenarios about what happened to him?
Look, the initial focus of the investigation was perhaps it was a situation the little boy lost that wandered off. There was a very extensive search carried out in the early days, and we've discounted it that it was death by misadventure or wandering off. The extent of the search has made it very clear in our mind that it's not possible, that there has to be human intervention, and human intervention in the form of a criminal activity by abducting William.
Last year, police said that a pedophile ring might have something to do with his disappearance. Do you think that's still the case?
We're keeping our minds open on everything. In regards to the pedophile ring, and that was one of the lines of inquiry that played out in public, we make no apology when we're going into a community and investigating a crime of this nature, what we uncover. But I think what it demonstrates is that we leave no rock unturned, and if there's stuff that we uncover, we'll treat it appropriately.
Do you think they were involved with William's disappearance?
Look, I'm not going to speculate, and that gets into the realms of discussing persons of interest, but as I said, we're keeping an open mind, and we focus on every line of inquiry.
And those two cars that were seen outside William's grandmother's house, the information came out about that last year. Have you been able to figure out who those cars belong to?
We have, since that information came out and since we appealed to the public, we've been inundated with information about those cars. That's led us to get a clearer picture of where those cars, the significance of those cars, and that's one of the lines of inquiry we're pursuing.
How recent are some of the reported sightings?
They are starting to dwindle, the sightings. They were coming in on a daily basis, but we are still getting reported sightings of William. And look, as I've said, sometimes, and I'll use examples of a sighting where someone said that they saw someone in a shopping centre that looked like William. When we followed it up, they explained that the child was 8 years old. So that's why I'm talking about using common sense with the sightings, the circumstances in which the child was there, and provide that. I don't want to dissuade people from providing information, but I want common sense to factor into it too on the type of information that might be of assistance to this investigation.
With the wording of the reward, you say you want the return. It sounds like you're confident that a lot of people know, that at least some people know where he is.
I'm sure people know where he is. So in terms of the recovery, that's the thing. There's a million reasons to come forward with information. If you've got any concerns that someone's withholding information or whatever, provide it. So, and it is a unique situation for a reward, the announcement, but also the magnitude of the reward. But what separates this situation from others is that we potentially have a victim that could still be alive.
I guess the other side of this too, Gary, is that you are willing to negate charges against someone who might be considered.
Look, it's in terms of concealed serious offence. I can say this in layman's terms that concealing a serious offence is a criminal offence, but that is negated if you provide the information to police. So that's what I'm saying, and you're in a much better position. And I can't get down to the nitty-gritty of the legalities of the situation, but I can assure you you're in a much better position if you come to us rather than we come to you.
Last year you announced that this case had been referred to the coroner. How is that process proceeding, and when do you expect the inquest into this to begin?
Look, we're a long way from this going to a coronial inquest. The coronial inquest is at the point in time subject to the coroner's view when we've exhausted all our lines of inquiry. I've personally briefed the state coroner in regards to this, and he's happy with the direction of the investigation and the fact that it's still an ongoing investigation.
Can I just, in wrapping this up, summarise what we've heard today? First and foremost, this investigation is not winding down. If anything, in fact, it's ramping up, which is really important. Secondly, as you've heard with the announcement of a $1 million reward, there's a million good reasons to come forward. Third, there's a very, very good chance that we know who the offender is, or at least have the understanding of where this investigation may go. I think you've heard Gary say that you're better off to come to us rather than have us come to you. So here's the opportunity. And at this stage, in wrapping this up, I want to thank the public. I also want to thank the police for the work that they've done. And we're confident that we will get to the bottom of this sooner rather than later. And at this stage, with much work to be done, we're looking forward to the recovery of young William.
Commissioner, can we ask you about some observations?
Sure.
Johnson in the background. I don't know if Eddie wants to say
Can I just... Unless there's a question for Hetty, but she's here with us as well. Sorry, I needed to acknowledge Hetty. Thank you.
What can you tell us about the stabbing at Minto, the man now facing terrorism charges? We've heard reports this morning that he was inspired by the Parramatta shooter, Farhad Mohammed.
Well, of course, you'd understand that with somebody before the courts, serious matters, charged with terrorism-related offences, attempted murder, it doesn't get much more serious. So at this stage, I'm certainly not going to jeopardise that particular investigation. The man is in custody. He did not apply for bail on the weekend. We'll be back before the court on Wednesday. We may see a bail application then, but police will be strongly opposing any such recommendation.
There are some reports today that neighbours reported him to the terror hotline. Is that?
Yeah, haven't been able to confirm that. In fact, all of the checks to date, which you can imagine there's been many that have been made overnight, have not yielded that advice. But of course, that doesn't mean that there wasn't some a year ago. We're continuing to check on that. But at this stage, at this early stage, because we are at a very early stage in this investigation, there is no evidence that those matters were or anything had been reported with regard to this person to the NSH.
He was on no terror watch list already. He'd been investigated for unrelated charges. Does that concern you at all? That somebody could become radicalised and show a sign, I guess?
Well, the fact that anyone could become radicalised concerns me.
Was he under the watch of your counter-terrorism police?
Well, he'd come to notice of police, local police, and that had been as a result of his activities, and he'd previously been put before a court. Those matters were dispensed with, by the court, and at this stage, rather than go into too much detail, I think it's probably best that we leave this until it is back before a court. Again, I'm not going to compromise or jeopardise this at this stage. It's far too important. A $1 million reward for the safe return. In fact, the return of this little boy. It is a unique announcement here in New South Wales. We've never had a $1 million reward ever before. That's 1 million reasons why somebody that's out there that knows what's happened should come forward and talk to us, and do it soon. I'll hand over to the Premier for a few words, and then I'm going to hand you over to Inspector Jubilee. Can I say I'm very, very pleased with the way the investigation.
Years to the day since William Tyrell vanished from the New South Wales mid-north coast, police have hundreds of persons of interest in the case. And now a computer image has been compiled of how the little boy in the Spider-Man suit would most likely look today. Let's go live to our reporter Michelle Taverniti, who's at police headquarters in Sydney. Good morning, Michelle.
We're here to take you through and in fact give you an operational update, but particularly to announce a reward in a matter that has captured the hearts and the minds of the nation. I'm also joined by Detective Chief Inspector Gary Jubilee, who leads the operation. And as you are all aware, today is the second anniversary on the kidnapping of the little fellow William Tyrell. Can I say by starting that today we've been heartened by the support from government, particularly Premier and the Deputy Premier. And I can announce to you that as of today there will be...
Horses are being brought in from around the state.
Good morning, Jane. That's right. Detectives from Strike Force Roseanne, which was set up to investigate the disappearance of William Tyrell, have been given information on 600 persons of interest. Now, 200 of them haven't been identified, but certainly a massive amount of interest in this and a big update in this investigation. 2 years since the case that gripped the nation, 3-year-old William was playing in the backyard of his grandmother's home at Kendall on the New South Wales mid-north coast when he simply vanished. Now, of course, we know those images of a cheeky little boy wearing a Spider-Man suit, that suit that he was wearing, in fact, when he disappeared. Now, in terms of the police investigation, police at local area commands across the state have been given those details of those persons of interest. Now, it's up to them to help tackle that list and then report back to the homicide squad. And also today, a facial anthropologist has released a computer image of what William, who'd be 5 now, would most likely look like. A reminder, of course, that anybody who has any information is urged to come forward and contact police. Jane?
And a pretty distressing weekend for his family too, I would imagine.
Joining us. I'm joined today by Premier Mike Baird and